This podcast is for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to From Crime to Crime.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Nobody cares. Let's get right into this because this is hot off the press. Like, this stuff is happening right now.
We wanted to come on and just do like an update on the Lisk case because, as everybody's heard by now, they've arrested a suspect in Long Island.
Really, truly, it's an update for me because, like, I know the case, but, like, and I've seen kind of what's going on, but this is, like, going to be so informative for me because I didn't deep dive into it, and I know you've been deep doven into it since it happened. So what the hell is going on with this?
Before we get into, like, what happened on Friday or about Rex Heuermann, let's get caught up a little bit with, like, a synopsis of the case because I'm pretty sure you need a refresher, and maybe there's other people that do, too.
I know the bare bones of it, but yeah, let's get caught up so I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, so in 2010 is when this case became like big news. Technically, it started like way back in the 90s, but it was starting to piece together by 2010. So shortly before 5 a.m. on May 1st, a woman named Shannon Gilbert called 911 from inside a client's home in Long Island, New York. And Shannon was a sex worker, and she had a driver named Mike that drove her to the client's house. And for a long time, it was pretty unclear on what was said on the 911 call because they wouldn't release it. But what we do know is that she was yelling and acting erratic, and the client and the driver had to try to calm her down. She called 911. She told them somebody was after her, and she could be heard yelling at Mike, her driver, to get her out of there. She ran from house to house in the gated community asking for help, and then she just vanished.
This is nefarious.
So Shannon Gilbert going missing is what kind of kicked off this whole case. And in the days after her disappearance, like a weird doctor that lives in the community made a call to the family saying that he ran a home for wayward girls and that he had talked to Shannon that night. And then he denied making these calls, but the phone record said he did. And then he admits that he did, but he says that isn't what he said. Anyways, it's complicated, and it really put him in the spotlight kind of like as a suspicious person.
Good, because I'm a little suspicious of him. That's kind of weird, right? Like,
yeah.
It reminds me of that episode where that the doctor had that sex hotline for like girls to call into. It was like, well, that's weird too.
Yeah. But in all honesty, we never really get clarification on what the fuck went on there, so who knows. But it did create a big wave of like weird stuff that was going on around her disappearance. And so the police start doing searches for Shannon in the area, but there was no sign of her. She just vanished. So the search continues for a while for Shannon, on and off. Then on December 11th, 2010, the police discover the skeletal remains of a woman along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, which is not that far. And this is big news because they find these remains where they were looking for Shannon.
Right.
But the remains that they found were not Shannon Gilbert. They were another woman named Melissa Barthélemy. And she had been missing for a year and a half since July of 2009.
So now we got two people who are missing, and...
Well, we got one person they're still looking for, and then while they were looking for her, they found the body of another woman.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, cool. So they found one they weren't expecting while looking for the other one they were expecting.
Right. Then, a few days later, on December 13th, the skeletal remains of Maureen Brainerd Barnes were discovered in the same area. On that same day, they found the skeletal remains of Amber Costello and the skeletal remains of Megan Waterman.
Wow. Like, talk about, like, a gold mine of, they weren't even looking for these people, and they found 3 other, like, people. Dude, their heads must have spun.
4.
Oh, they found 4 other people. Okay, so really their heads must have spun. Like, where's this chick we're looking for, and who are these people?
Exactly. So they found the remains of Melissa Barthélemy, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Amber Costello, and Megan Waterman. They were all discovered on Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, really close to each other. All of the girls had last been seen between 2009 and 2010, so like a year and a half. And all 4 of these women were also sex workers and all known to advertise on Craigslist.
Oh, wow. Oh, so like we got kind of another Craigslist killer situation kind of, or at least that's the feel of it.
Yes. And all 4 of their bodies were wrapped in burlap.
Oh, wow. So like obviously they're all connected.
Yes. At this point, it's pretty clear there's a serial killer in the area immediately.
Very active, it seems to.
Yeah. So they were searching for Shannon Gilbert, a missing girl, and they stumbled on literally a disposal site for a monster.
100%.
Yeah, so they continue the search for Shannon and for more, because they found 4 within like 2 days. So they're like, we better keep looking. And in March of 2011, so just a couple months later, they find the remains of a skull and a pair of hands and a forearm. So partial remains.
Wow. Yeah, but where's the rest of?
Well, after DNA analysis, it was determined that it didn't belong to Shannon, but it did match a woman named Jessica Taylor. And Jessica Taylor was 20 and living in New York City when she went missing in 2003.
Right, so years before.
7 years later, or this is 2011, so 8 years later. But in 2003, after she went missing in July of 2003, her dismembered torso was discovered in Manorville, New York, which is like 45 minutes east of where the rest of her remains were just found in 2011.
Wow.
So they had already found the other parts of her 8 years before.
They just didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah, well, they identified them and everything, but they didn't know where her other body parts were. And then in this search, they found her other parts. Then a few days later, on April 4th, 2011, they find 3 more sets of remains. And this is where it starts to get a little complicated. So you're going to have to pay attention, Grant.
All right. I'm dialed in.
Okay, so the first set of remains is known as Jane Doe number 6.
The first set is number 6. Great. Okay.
No, it's known as Jane Doe number 6. There's a reason.
Right. Okay.
Because it's the 6th body they found, and she's a Jane Doe, so it's Jane Doe number 6.
Got it. So far, so good.
Yeah, so they find a head, a right foot, and hands. Because they didn't know who she was, they dubbed her Jane Doe number 6. It was later determined that this set of remains belonged to a woman whose torso had been found 11 years earlier, also in Manorville, New York.
Wow.
So in the same area as Jessica Taylor, the other victim who her torso was found in Manorville, this Jane Doe's also was.
So, seriously, I mean, this person is probably the same person dumping at the same site. Like, they're all starting to connect.
At least as Jessica Taylor, at least as the last one.
Right.
Because they're dismembered. They were both partially dumped in Manorville, partially dumped down here. Yeah. This Jane Doe would go unidentified for a long time, too, and known as Jane Doe number 6 until May 28th, 2020. Police announced that her remains had been identified through genetic genealogy as Valerie Mack. Valerie Mack had gone missing in the summer of 2000 from New Jersey.
Okay, so even further back than the rest of them.
Yep. So the second victim that they found that day is known as Asian Male. This victim died from blunt force trauma. The victim was found wearing women's clothing and may have possibly been a transgender woman, so people may not know him as a male.
Gotcha, okay.
So the victim was between 17 and 23, 5'6". He was missing 4 teeth and may have had musculoskeletal disorder. Musculoskeletal disorder. If the victim had it, it would have affected their gait, like their walk.
Interesting. I would have thought their back, but their gait, okay.
The estimated PMI was between 5 and 10 years.
And what does PMI stand for?
Postmortem interval, like the estimate of how long the body has been there.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that was a term.
Yeah, PMI, postmortem interval, yeah.
I'll add that to the dictionary.
This victim is still unidentified.
Still to this day. We don't know who this is. Wow.
Yeah, so if this victim was found in 2011 and the PMI is 5 to 10 years, anywhere from, 2001 to 2007, 2006.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty wide range.
Yeah. So the third victim found that day shocked everybody because it not only was not Shannon Gilbert again, but they were the skeletal remains of a female toddler.
Oh, man. I hate that.
She was between 16 and 24 months, and the body was wrapped in a blanket and showed no visible signs of trauma.
I have a question. Then how does starvation? How does...
They don't know. They're skeletal, so the cause of death is undetermined. They can't figure it. They don't know. It could have been suffocation or it could have been a whole lot of things. I
didn't think about those. Okay. I guess I would have thought because they would have needed the muscles, though, to prove strangulation, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Unless the hyoid bone was damaged, but it may not have been because she was so small. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she was 16 to 24 months old, black female, wearing gold jewelry.
Who's blinging out their baby?
Yeah. It was cute, though. It said that it was earrings and I think a ring, or maybe it was a necklace. I don't know.
I would think a necklace or bracelet over a ring. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
I don't know.
very small ring.
I wore earrings when I was a baby.
I did not.
Well, you don't wear them now either.
No, I do have my left ear pierced, but that was kind of a 90s thing. That came and went with the 90s and hasn't really come back since.
Right. So all those victims were found on the same day. Then about a week later, on April 11th, 2011, 2 more sets of remains were found.
In the same place?
Yeah, same area. They're all scattered along Ocean Parkway.
Now, was this more recent or also skeletal, like been there for a while?
Well, the first one was also skeletal.
Okay.
They were found inside a plastic bag near Jones Beach, and the victim was dubbed Jane Doe number 3 because they don't know her identity. And after DNA analysis, it was announced that this victim was also not Shannon Gilbert, but was later matched to a woman whose torso had been found in Hempstead State Park 14 years before, in 1997.
Wow. So now we're going even further back than we thought already.
Right. And another victim whose torso was found years before in a different area, and now her other remains are found here. So this is very similar.
Wow. How many victims are we up to now?
I don't know, 8, 9. We'll find out.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll add them up
We'll
at the end.
count them up later. Great.
Yeah. But her remains were matched to this woman who'd been found in Hempstead Park 14 years before in 1997. And that torso was found in a plastic Rubbermaid container, which was just like dumped along the side of the road. She had a tattoo on her left chest of a heart-shaped peach with a bite out of it. So this victim was dubbed Peaches because she had this peach tattoo.
Are they sure it wasn't the Apple logo?
No, I'm positive. It's a peach.
They could be very similar.
No, it's a peach. And it has like the little juice drippings coming off of it.
Oh, okay.
So Jane Doe number 3, whose remains were found on the beach, is now connected to Peaches, whose torso was found 14 years before. It's the same person.
Wow. So they lined them up and we got Peaches figured out now.
Yes. Well, we don't know. We still don't know who she is. She's still a Jane Doe, but she's now connected.
What year did we connect all the dots to this?
This is 2011 when she's found on Jones Beach.
Gotcha. Okay.
Then in 2016, DNA analysis identified Peaches as the mother of Baby Doe, the toddler.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Unfortunately, but that makes a lot of sense.
So 1997 at least is when her torso was found. That's when this toddler and her other remains were likely dumped in that area.
Wow.
And they don't find them until 2011.
Yeah, they were there a while.
Yeah, the second set of remains found that day was Jane Doe number 7.
Whew.
A human skull and several teeth are found. These remains are linked through DNA testing to a set of legs found in a garbage bag on Fire Island, New York, 15 years before in 1996.
My gosh. Like, it keeps getting further and further back. Like, when you think,
Right.
like, okay, this is probably as late, like, it keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Especially when they find, like, some remains here and some remains over there. Like, that's bad. So that woman had already been dubbed Fire Island Jane Doe. So Jane Doe number 7 and Fire Island Jane Doe are the same person. So this is not looking good.
No, man, this is crazy.
So, like, you were trying to keep track earlier, and what we have here is a fucking giant mess.
Massive. And like all of it intertwined and stuff. Like these cops are probably just, their heads are spinning, I'm sure, of just like they keep finding more and more.
Yeah. In the search for Shannon Gilbert, they've uncovered numerous sets of remains and partial remains that are linked back to other partial remains all the way back to the 90s. So all in all, there ends up being 10 in these couple of months that they're searching for Shannon. That they find the 4 Gilgo Beach victims that were wrapped in burlap and then these 6 other remains.
My head is spinning from how many remains that they're finding. Like,
Yeah.
this is nuts, man.
And eventually they find a lot more, but they don't connect all of them to this.
So were all of these still wrapped in burlap?
The first 4 Gilgo Beach murders that they found that were all tight together, and they identified all of them, and all of them had only been missing like a year or a year and a half, those were all wrapped in burlap.
Okay, gotcha.
But all these other ones that they're finding are dismembered. They're found in plastic bags. They have similarities to each other, but not necessarily to the first 4.
So are they thinking at this point this is the same person, or are they thinking this might be 2 or more people?
Both. They kind of flip-flop back and forth. Like some press conferences, they're like, yeah, it's one killer. Like, we only have one psycho here, and this is his dumping grounds. And then other ones, they're like, it's like 2 pretty distinct MOs, or maybe even 3.
There are a lot of similarities so far to this and the West Mesa Bone Collector.
What do you mean?
Just like all of these victims kind of coming up in the same spot. They think it's the same killer, but
That's true.
It could be 2, it could be 1, it could be multiple. No one's exactly, just the dumping ground is the dumping ground for possibly 2 or more.
Yeah, and over the years, they find a lot of bodies. A lot. Some dismembered, some not. Kids, adults, all kinds, all over the place. And for some reason, they connect those first 4 that were found in the burlap, and then the other 6 that they found while searching for like, they really only count that as, like, the ones. But, like, when you look up on NamUs and everything, there's, like, they've been finding bodies ever since then. So I don't know why they're not all connected.
And how many bodies have they found?
I don't know. I didn't count them, but I mean, numerous.
Dude, but that's what I'm saying, though. That's a huge amount. If, like, just glancing at it, you can be like, oh, it looks like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6. Like, there's a lot of these bodies turning up.
But that's why the theories are so abundant in this case, because it's like, is it one killer that's responsible for this many people, or is it a lot of killers and they all use this as a dumping ground? Because it's convenient.
Has Joel Rifkin ever been tied to any of these?
No, that's what I'm saying. When people say that, like, oh, it's all one, it's like, I don't know. It feels like it's like 6 or 8 of them. And they're all using the same spot.
Now, is that better? Like, are you happier that there's 6 or 8 people who are only doing, like, 1, maybe 2? Or is it better to have one guy who's doing all of them?
I don't know, because I think that's why people like the one guy theory, because they're like, oh, there's only one scary guy we're looking for, you know, or we need to keep our eye out. But I think in this case, it's more than one guy, but we don't know that yet.
I mean, as you know, technology is advanced, we're starting to realize that sometimes there are only one, you know, it's a one-off thing, you know, it's not, like they killed 10. It's like, no, 10 dudes killed one. Killed one person.
See, but in this case, there's like 4 or 5 that fit the exact same.
Yeah.
And multiple sets of 4 or 5. So it's either the same killer and he's changing his way of doing things over the years, or it's different killers.
Well, and usually killers don't change their MO. Usually if it works, they go with it.
That's not true, because they figure out what works by trying different things.
Good point. Yeah.
So maybe back in the 90s, he was doing all this work to dismember bodies and dump them in different locations. And then that was too much work. And it was like, why? I'm not getting caught anyway. They're not even finding the ones where I dumped the dismembered parts on Oak Beach or on Ocean Parkway. They're not even finding those. So why even do that?
I would say keep doing it if they're not finding it. Keep doing exactly what you're doing, because they're not finding them. Like, don't get lazy and change it up.
What he was doing was dismembering them, and he was dumping their torsos in one area and their other remains in this area, and their torsos were getting found and the other remains weren't.
I gotcha.
So why not just keep it all together in the same area, you know?
Yeah, seriously.
If they're not getting found. So, but that's for theory land, Grant, and we're not doing theory land now.
I know.
It's at the very least, it's a fucking mess, because there's either a bunch of serial killers all using the same area, or there's one serial killer killing in a bunch of different ways, which is unlikely, but possible, I guess. So it does seem like it's more than one, though. I just want to make my stance clear on that for when this all comes down.
Understood. That's your stance.
Yep.
Hell, that could be the official From Crime to Crime stance, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So there's also a lot to this case. We're not getting into it. We're just kind of refreshing. But there's like a police chief who some people are certain is at the very least corrupt, and at the worst might be one of the killers responsible for this.
That's some small town shit, huh?
Yeah. There's fumbles with information and evidence, and they won't release the 911 call. It's kind of messy. Then in December of 2011, Shannon Gilbert's wallet, purse, and pants were found in a marsh in Oak Beach, near where she went missing.
Could they tell how long those had been there?
Yeah, since the night she disappeared. I mean, she had them on her when she disappeared, yeah. So about a week after they find her stuff, they found her remains in a marsh about a quarter mile from where her stuff was found, near where she went missing. So they finally find Shannon Gilbert. They've been looking for her this whole time, and they've been finding all these other people and not her.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Totally
Yeah.
forgot about that. But yeah, you're right. That was the first person we were looking for.
Yeah. So 6 months later, when the autopsy revealed her cause of death to be inconclusive, they kind of speculate that she died of drowning or hypothermia after getting turned around or lost in the marsh, and pretty much say it's like accidental, that she's not related to these other homicide victims even.
That's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, super weird. I mean, it'd be tragic if it was true, because that means like they're looking for this girl and she just died accidentally but uncovered this whole dumping ground for this serial killer. But her family isn't super satisfied with that finding. Her mom and her sisters and stuff, they have a private autopsy done, which also kind of concludes that her cause of death is undetermined, but they say that it's more consistent with homicidal strangulation, because her hyoid bone was damaged and she was found face up in the marsh, which most drowning victims are found face down.
So she was strangled and dumped?
They think so. It's just not provable at this point, but it does seem a little like, I don't know. It could go either way for me, I guess. I wasn't there. But, I mean, I wasn't.
Good. You're not a suspect.
The theory is that she, like, kind of had a break. You know, whether it was drug-induced or whatever, she had some sort of mental break. And she was thinking somebody was after her, and she ran into this marsh and got kind of like turned around and either died of hypothermia or drowned.
But would her highway bone? No, what is it? The high. What's the bone in her neck? The hyroid bone.
It's the hyoid bone.
The hyoid. Wow, I'm not.
Do it. Do it.
I've pronounced the hyroid bone.
Hyoid.
Hyoid. Hyoid.
Yep. There you go.
Bone. That is not.
Okay, the bone in her neck.
Yeah. So, like, if she had died from hypothermia or drowning, would that hyoid bone in her neck have been
Damaged?
Damaged?
I don't know. I doubt it. But we don't know the state of her remains either. If they were skeletal, I mean, that's a really tiny bone. Like, if an animal picked it up and dropped it, you know, it might get damaged. I don't know. I don't know if this is a thing, but I was thinking the other day that, like, when I die, I would just like to be thrown out into the woods and just let animals eat me. Like, I would love to feed nature. I think that'd be the coolest part. I know they probably won't let me do it, but that'd be the way I'd like to be remembered. I think the only way you could do that is if you donate your body to, like, the body farm.
The what? There is a thing called the body farm?
Yeah.
What? And I can let animals eat me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a farm. I'm almost positive it's in Tennessee, but I could be wrong. Could be somewhere else.
I am so in on that.
No, they are like a research facility, and that's how they study post-mortem intervals. Like, they put bodies out in different climates and different areas, you know, covered, uncovered, buried, not buried, you know, whatever. And then they take notes on what happens to the body every day or every hour or whatever.
Dude.
That way it helps research determine, like, okay, if it's left out in the open for this amount of time with these conditions, it decomposes at this rate. And
I had no idea about that, but I'm going to look it up, and I think that might be the way to do it.
Okay. Well, we're moving on, because your wife will never allow that, so.
I hope she does.
She won't. I know her. So I don't know if I'd allow it. Although I'll be way long gone, so.
Do you think that you're going to die before me?
Well, I eat way less cashew cheese than you do. Pretty sure. So, anyway.
It's true. You do eat less cashew cheese than I do.
Also, I eat more real cheese, which is, like, the bigger problem.
Cheese is so good in any form.
I know. But also, you know, the caffeine and the cigarettes and everything. I'm sure it's fine.
I will say there are 7 body farms in the U.S.
Okay. So there's not just one. I thought there was just like maybe there's an OG one. I don't know. So let's get back on track here, because this is supposed to be a really short episode and we haven't even gotten to the arrest yet. So there's a lot of theories, podcasts, crime shows. Everybody's obsessed with this case. We've all heard about it. I just wanted to give you mostly, Grant, like a update on how they found all these bodies and connected them to each other.
You have no idea how much I appreciate this.
Yeah. So also, in like 2016, that police chief was sentenced to like 4 years in prison. So that's like not a good deal. He like beat up some guy who stole some shit out of his or out of his SUV that was embarrassing to him. I don't know. I don't remember. It had something to do with porn or something. I don't know. It's a shit show.
This sounds very Joel Rifkin-y again.
Yeah, it's a shit show over the years. And because of all these like higher up people involved in like shitty stuff, everybody is like very not confident in the fact that they're going to solve this, because they're like, not only could you probably not solve this, you might be involved. So we don't like that a lot. Anyway, as the years go on, like I said, they find more dismembered bodies. They find more bodies in general. But for some reason, they've never, even though when they sound like they should be, they haven't been like officially connected to these cases. So I don't know why. But in 2016, Mary Gilbert, Shannon's mom, was murdered in her home in New York. So Shannon, the girl that kicked this all off.
Right. Like, are these at all connected? Like, is it the same person just killing the whole family?
No, her daughter, Sarah, was charged for her murder.
Oh, man.
So, some kind of domestic situation there.
Dude.
So, I mean, this kind of thing can tear a family apart, too. So then in 2017, a guy named John Bitrolf from Manorville was announced as a suspect for some of the victims. Remember, Manorville was where some of the torsos were found.
Right.
So he was charged in 2014 for the murders of 2 sex workers in 1993 and 1994. And he was on trial in 2017, and he was found guilty.
Good. Okay. We got somewhere.
Yeah, so because of his past with, killing sex workers and the fact that he lived in Manorville, a lot of people are like, hello. And that the 2 sex workers that he was convicted of killing were in 93 and 94. And some of the other dismembered victims were found in 96, 97, 2000. Like, it kind of works for the timeline.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, but there's never been like a, gotcha, or an update on that. It's just nothing. I know, there never is. Yeah. So in January 2020, the police released pictures of a belt with embossed letters on it. And this is like the first piece of evidence that they've like shown the public. And they tell them they think it belonged to the killer. That it was found with one of the victims, but they think that it wasn't the victims. And the belt had the letters HM or WH embossed on it.
Probably HM, right? Like for H&M? Like, is we're thinking it's just
no,
off
it
the
wasn't
rack or
H&M.
personalized?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. It was like embossed initials. Like it could be HM one way, or if you flip it around, it could be WH the other way.
That damn H, man, it can do anything.
Yeah, so by this time, there's huge pressure from Shannon's family to release Shannon's 911 call to see if there's any connection to the other case. Like, people are like, you guys, it's been 11 years. Like, why haven't we heard the 911 call? Come on. And with all the reports of corruption and the police chief getting arrested and all that, it makes sense that people are like ultra sketchy why we haven't heard the 911 call.
Oh, 100%. Like, what's the holdup? Why aren't we hearing it?
The police just keep saying no. It's an ongoing investigation. But they were the ones who found her body and deemed it an accident. So it's like, no, it isn't. Just release the 911 call. There's no reason not to. So the family had to hire an attorney who had to do all these kinds of appeals. Anyway, by May of 2020...
That's why people don't trust the police, by the way.
Yeah. So by May of 2020, a judge overturns the ruling and orders the Suffolk County Police Department to release the call.
Oh, well, fantastic.
They still don't do for a really long time, but that's beside the point. They do eventually, but not yet. Then in October of 2021, Suffolk County invested in technology that analyzes old cell phone data, which we didn't know that at the time, but we find out now that in October of 2021, they decided to invest in this technology, and they also brought in an MVAC to collect DNA from the crime scenes. Yeah.
Oh, I love hearing about that. Jared probably was all over that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool because now we know there's an arrest. So it's like that was probably super key on this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully we see Jared at CrimeCon this year and we can talk to him about it.
Yeah. So in February of 2022, the Suffolk County Commissioner, Rodney Harrison, which is like a new one. He's not one of the ones that was like corrupt and went to prison. I mean, I don't know if he's corrupt or not, but I don't think so.
He's not corrupt enough yet to go to prison.
Yeah. So he announced that a task force had been created to solve these homicides. He's like, we're done with this shit. We want to be transparent. We want to get these solved. We don't want to be looked at as this like corrupt, inept, whatever. So he puts together a task force with the Suffolk County PD, the Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney, and the FBI.
A whole lot of people in on this.
Yeah, and that's in February of 2022. And little things trickle out here and there, like they hold press conferences to announce the release of Shannon's 911 call, and to say that while her death is tragic, it's probably not related to these other victims. Like, she wasn't found in the same area or in the same way. Like, she did lead them to this case, but they don't think her case is related at all.
That's weird, right?
I mean, yeah, it's a weird coincidence, but I also see how they think it's not related either. But they also released video surveillance of Megan Waterman, one of the victims, the Gilgo victims that they found in the burlap. The last time she was seen was in a hotel lobby, and they released that video. But not much else comes about from this task force until Friday.
So they're like, this whole thing was founded in 2002. It just did like
2022.
2022. Oh, okay, cool.
Yes.
So they're moving a little bit faster then.
Yes. So we all woke up on Friday morning with the news that they had a suspect in custody.
Quite literally, by the way, because when I woke up and I checked my phone, the first thing I had was a text message from you from like, I think the New York Post with this headline and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, let me wake up. And now I got to figure out what's going on with this. So
You're like,
very
now I
literally
remember
woke
what
up.
this is.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, Lisk. Oh, they spelled List wrong. I thought we already solved John List. Oh, yeah. Lisk. Got it. Long Island serial killer.
Yeah. So at the beginning, we didn't really know a whole lot, which is why we didn't want to like jump on here and do an episode like immediately. And we still don't know that much. But after that press conference on Friday, I mean, they released quite a bit. Besides his name and the charges, I mean, they released a lot about how they found him, what this task force was all about. Usually that kind of, arrest affidavits and stuff like that are usually like heavily redacted.
Right. That's what I was thinking. So like they must be pretty certain that everything they found is like legit and going to stick. Because, I mean, it was a while after the one in Indiana, the Delphi murder was like solved. There was at least a few days before they actually released who he was and how they thought they found out who he was and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it still is like a big secret on all the evidence they have. I mean, a little bit more is leaking out here and there, but not much until it goes to trial. Because that's why they do that, to protect their case and to prevent like tainting a jury pool and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and probably giving like a defense attorney like a head start into what they have.
Totally. So he was charged with first and second degree murders on 3 of the first 4 victims found. So Waterman, Barthélemy, and Costello. But he's also the major suspect in Maureen Brainerd Barnes also. So the 4 that were found in Gilgo Beach right next to each other in the beginning, wrapped in burlap, those are the ones he's charged with.
Perfect. Do you think he's going to give more info? Like, do you think he's going to sing, or do you think he's going to go the other way with it?
I'm not sure. He pled not guilty at his arraignment and he was remanded. Like, they didn't give him bail.
For them to release all this stuff about him, like, they must have something really good. So, like, he might want to change his tune.
Yeah, in the press conference, they described how the 4 victims were all petite women. They were all sex workers. They were all bound at the head with camouflage burlap. That was a new kind of thing, too, because everybody always assumed that it was like burlap that you would buy at like a nursery. Burlap sacks, like for trees.
Or potatoes. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was camouflage burlap that was used in duck blinds, like for hunting.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not see that going that way. Was he a hunter?
Yeah, he's an architect named Rex Heuermann. And yes, he's a hunter. He held hunting licenses in multiple states.
Oh, wow. That's unsettling.
Yeah, a little bit. In the press conference, they said that he was caught because of a complex web of cell phone evidence and because he drove a Chevy Avalanche that matched the description of a super tall, large man who frequented one of the victims before she was killed. And he's a super tall, large, he's like 6'4", 250 or something. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the cell phone evidence is like extremely complicated, but extremely interesting. Like he used all these burner phones to contact the victims, and they've tracked down every single burner phone and how it was like in the same area as the victims' phones during the times of the murders, and that like his wife and his family's cell phones were out of state or out of the country every time there was a murder.
Oh my God.
Even though they were burner phones, which is wild. I'm like, hey, I knew they could track burner phones. They've been lying to us for years.
Yeah, 100% they have.
They laid it all out in this affidavit pretty much. And we're talking about how, they pinged off of towers in Midtown, which is where his architecture firm was in Midtown Manhattan. And then it would ping off of towers in Long Island. And then it would ping with the victim's phone for a certain amount of time. And then the victim's phone would go dead or like they just like literally tracked down cell phone evidence from 2007 and 8 and 9 and 10. Like, that's 13, 15 years ago.
I know. Luckily, like, I don't have anything to hide or a burner phone, but like, if you do, you're going to get caught. Like, let's just put it out. Like, we got some pretty gnarly technology.
Yeah, it was wild. So there was other things, though, too. Like, he talked in the press conference, the DA did, about the DNA evidence, but he said that he couldn't go into detail because of the way, like, New York law is. He can't talk about the details. But he did say that a hair was recovered from Maureen Brainerd Barnes in a belt buckle that was wrapped around her legs. And then 3 hairs were recovered from Waterman, and 1 was like around her head, and 1 was around her leg, and 1 was caught in between the tape. So we kind of found out there was tape involved in there too. He also said a significant hair was recovered from Costello's body, and the hairs couldn't be tested for DNA until DNA technology improved, which is why he said it took them so long. Now the DNA technology is there, so they were able to test it.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah. And in the court documents that were posted on Daily Mail's website, they said that they believe that the hair, that some of the hairs at least, match Heuermann's wife, which means that they pretty much know that they came from his house or their house and transferred either to his clothing or the burlap, because during the murder, she was out of state.
Oh, okay, cool. That's why I said, oh no, because I was like, oh no, like she was involved. And for whatever reason, it's always worse when a woman's involved. But I get it. Like, it was just attached to his stuff.
Yeah. It was like his wife's hair sheds, like everybody's hair sheds, you know. And it was either attached to him or the burlap and got transferred during the murders.
Oh, man.
So, but yeah, she's not suspected at all because they've already figured out through cell phones that she was, like, never around when any of these girls went missing or when they were murdered. Like, one trip she was in Iceland. She's been not around every time this has happened. He's been home alone.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
I know. I was literally, when I read that, I was like, are you kidding me? His wife's hair? Like, my husband would be so screwed. He can't commit any crimes.
No, especially because he doesn't have much hair and you have so much hair. And between you and your dogs, like, that dude
he would
walks
get
around
caught so fast.
So fast. Not to mention you have pink hair, so like we're pretty much drawing the conclusion straight to you right away. Or not the conclusion, but the connection.
Yeah, you guys don't even run DNA, but you find my hair all over your house all the time. And I'm not even there that much.
Dude, there are sometimes like where it's been like weeks and we've been like, this pink ass hair, where did this come from? Like, well, obviously when we went and visited Erica last year, it's still here. Okay.
Yeah. I know. I just couldn't. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's one of the. I mean, obviously, they've connected him in more than one way. Because between the cell phones and the car. And
well, I think that's why they're willing to talk about all of it, you know, is because they've got him pretty much dead right.
Yeah. So these documents are really interesting if you want to read them. They're totally available on the internet, but they are sketchy as fuck. Because they list out like all of his search history on the internet.
Did he search for anything weird?
Oh, I can't even read them. They're gross. I mean,
really? Can we get like a few?
No, most of it's child pornography.
Oh, and never mind then.
Torture porn.
Oh, okay, yeah, never mind. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah, they're messed up. But the court documents list them. So, like, whether this guy...
If you look up, like, torture porn, you should just go to jail anyway.
That's what I'm saying. Like, whether this guy is a murderer or not, like, which the police seem pretty confident he did this.
Yeah, they do.
At least 4 of them. Either way, this guy's going to prison. Like, the child porn and the other stuff that was on his computer, like, it's messed up.
Well, thank God.
So, it sounds like they got a real bad one off the streets.
But he hadn't really committed anything more recently that we know about?
No. We don't know, though. Like, we don't know much about him yet. I mean, we know that he grew up in the house that he currently lives in Long Island, which is kind of like a dump. And he bought that house from his mom in 1994. So it was the house he grew up in, and now he lives there with his wife and his 2 kids. And he's an architect. Like, we don't know that much about him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just know he's a big old creep.
Yeah. We know he's an architect. We know he liked to use burner phones to hire sex workers, and we know he liked to search gross shit on the internet, and the police think that he killed at least 4 of the Long Island victims, the Gilgo Beach 4. So that's pretty much all we know. We don't know a lot about him. We also did learn that his brother killed a cop in the 80s, which is kind of interesting too.
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting. Could there be any connection to these bodies and his brother?
Maybe, but he didn't like cold-blooded kill a cop. He killed him in a drunk driving chase situation. He killed him. So he only got 3 years in jail, and then he was released.
Okay.
So, and his brother moved to like South Carolina, where this Rex guy has a property also that they were planning on retiring at. And turns out he also had a condo in Vegas, as we've come to learn.
Oh, man. Did he have property anywhere else, too?
A couple articles that I read said that he had ties to Michigan, Arizona, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Las Vegas.
Oh, wow. This guy could be like the new Israel Keys. Like, this could go really deep, huh?
Yeah. And he held a hunting license in Alaska.
There's the Israel Keys tie again.
Yep. So, but we don't know what those connections are. They just said he has ties to or connections to those states.
That place in Nevada, was that kind of close to you? In the ballpark?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. The one, well, I mean, everywhere here is kind of close. I mean, it's a valley, so it's like 20 minutes away. But it was a timeshare, but he's owned 2 different timeshares, supposedly, in Nevada.
Oh. So he may have been a neighbor of yours at a time.
Yeah, so the news here did a little blurb about it, and they said that they contacted Vegas Metro and asked them, you know, like, hey, is this going to be a problem? And they're like, yeah, we're aware. We're looking into it.
Just one of the other things we have to deal with out here.
Yeah, so now they got to go back through all their unsolved cases and see if there could be any connections to Vegas.
Whoa. Wow. Dude, that's such a huge undertaking.
Especially here, unsolved cases of sex workers, like, that's going to be
a
while.
Better hire some interns.
But yeah, I mean, when we find out more, we'll let you know. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I'm just happy I'm all caught up on what's going on now, because I was watching it and I was like, I think I kind of get it, but now I really kind of get it.
Yeah, so they're only saying that they're confident, obviously, but they're only saying that he's responsible for the Gilgo 4. But they've only charged him with 3.
For now, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's a good chance it's going to creep up.
Totally. And they've already said that they're sure he's responsible for the 4th, too. They just didn't think they had a strong enough case on the 4th one to file charges yet.
Wow. Whew. Man, I'm looking forward to seeing how this one plays out, because like you said, like, it sounds like there's a really bad dude off of the street. And I think that's the most important thing of all of this.
Yep. I know they were showing on the news clips, too. They were showing, like, the neighbors and how shocked everybody was. And I was like, none of these people seem that shocked. They were all just like, wow, this is scary. Like, can't believe you live next door.
Yeah, I mean, I did read a couple of them, and they were like, you know, he seemed like a pretty normal guy, like...
But then some of them said he was the neighborhood creep.
No, I didn't read those, but I mean, you kind of have to, like, if you're this guy, I think you kind of have to be a little weird, right? Like, you can't just do these things and be like, yeah, that's just normal stuff. Like, that guy's acts totally normal 100% of the time. I could see him faking it for a little bit, but at certain points, like, you're gonna be like, hey, this guy's kind of a strange dude, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Well, that's pretty much all we know so far, so...
And now you do too.
So, hey, Grant.
Hey, Erica.
Before we go, I have somebody that wants to say hi to you.
To me?
Yes. You gotta sit here. You gotta talk into the mic.
Hello.
Hey, Warren.
Hi, Grant.
Hey, Warren. What's going on, man? How's your mullet?
It's getting better.
It is hard for mullets to get worse as long as they're on your head, so I believe it. How long is it? Like, does it go like mid-back or something?
Yeah, just about.
Well, yeah, what Appy said.
It's probably like 2 inches past his shoulders.
Dude, that's awesome. You should keep that mullet until you graduate high school. Like, just let it ride.
I should.
All right. Say bye to Grant. We gotta go.
Bye.
Bye, Warren. It's good talking to you. Hey, Erica, before we go real quick.
Hold on, Grant. He has one more thing he wants to say.
Oh, yeah. What's up, man?
Go follow my TikTok. OneHyper.VR. Bye.
That's not what you said you were gonna say. Say
hi, Grandpa. Call me.
Bye, buddy. He told me he was going to shout out Grandpa. He's like, I want to say hi to Grandpa. And then he tries to shout out his TikTok.
He must have had a great time in Utah, but otherwise go visit his TikTok at whatever it is.
Oh, I don't know what it is. It's something about video games.
That makes sense. Before we go, though, I wanted to ask you, did you hear about that cartoonist that was found dead in his home?
No.
Oh, well, the details are sketchy still, so... Yeah, I knew you'd
All
like
right,
it.
I'll give it to you. It's better than a murder of crows, so.
It's as good.
We'll end on that. All right, love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast has been a production of Orange Halo Media LLC, hosted by Grant and Erica. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. To chat with us, go to From Crime to Crime on Instagram, From Crime to Crime on TikTok, From Crime 2 Crime on Twitter, or you can visit our website at FromCrime2Crime.com. See you next Wednesday.